But first,
I'm going to vote to ratify this contract.
Twin Cities nurses fill the ballot boxes to decide their fate.
Well, I voted no. I think my union really let us down.
Their contract vote and its long-term implications is tonight's top story.
This is KARE 11 News at 5.
Good to have you with us today. After months of testy negotiations and a costly day-long walkout, 12,000 nurses from 14 metro hospitals are voting now on a tentative contract agreement.
The results could either put them back to work, scrap the agreement, or even authorize an open-ended strike that could drag on indefinitely. Union members have until 10 p.m. to vote either yes or no on a 3-year deal that maintains pension benefits and bumps wages. It does not address the highly volatile issue of staffing levels, which for some is a deal breaker. KARE 11's Scott Goldberg has been talking to both sides. He joins us live now from the St. Paul newsroom with more. Scott?
Well, Diana, the nurses have been voting since 6 o'clock this morning. They'll vote until 10 o'clock tonight, so we won't know the results for a while. Most observers expect the nurses will vote to ratify this deal, though it is clear many are not happy with it.
This was going to be the day some 12,000 nurses walked off their jobs. Instead, they went to vote on a contract that seemed to thrill no one.
We need to settle this because I love patients. I love patient care, and I really want to give them the best.
Was it tough?
It was, but I really appreciate the work that our negotiating team did. I think that they spoke well for us. I think they represented us well.
The nurses secured small pay raises and kept their pensions and health benefits intact, but they did not get the hospitals to agree to fixed staffing levels, which the union said from the start was the most important issue.
I voted no. I think my union really let us down. This was all about safe staffing. They want to increase our ratios, so I will now have more patients.
We were told Friday afternoon it was the contract to settle and everybody is joyous, and then the next moment the thing that we actually were out there picketing for and carrying signs for didn't happen.
In the end, the nurses won only a promise to keep talking about staffing levels, something the hospitals say they will continue to oppose because of the cost, especially at a time when they're not sure what federal health reform will mean for them.
To put anything else on top of that with these changes that we're looking at for federal reform, I mean, it's kind of like overdosing.
Union leaders said they expect the contract will pass. Even without the fixed staffing, they said they needed to protect patients.
It's a situation where there was a lot of different issues involved. That was the biggest one, the most important. We didn't win it, but that doesn't mean we're going to give up.
It takes a simple majority, 50% plus 1, to ratify the agreement. And once it is ratified, if it is ratified, it will take effect immediately. We expect the votes to be counted sometime around midnight. Mike and Di.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Well, this morning, an apartment and rooming house in St. Paul was in line for a new...
This is Fox at 5.
Thousands of nurses voting today on whether to accept a tentative labor deal with 14 Twin Cities hospitals. Voting will run until 10 o'clock tonight, with results coming in sometime around midnight. The deal already avoided an open-ended strike originally set for today. The 3-year contract endorsed by union leaders needs a majority vote by nurses. Under the agreement, nurses gave up their demand for nurse-to-patient ratios, while hospitals took back their proposal to cut pension and health care benefits. It is a hot and muggy one out there today. I know this because there's literally condensation on the face of my watch.
I can see it. It's still there.
Yeah.
Instead of striking, 12,000 nurses are voting on a new contract now. The union reached a tentative deal with 14 Twin Cities Hospital 5 days before they were set to walk the picket line. Colleen Mahoney's live outside of union headquarters now in St. Paul. Colleen.
Well, Leah, this has been a busy place. Some of the nurses tell us they're happy. Others are not so sure. But all of them admit that they're feeling relief after weeks of uncertainty. A steady stream of nurses came here to put their stamp on the union-approved contract.
I'm just really glad that everything's settled.
Many, like Amy Sportel, are glad they'll see a slight pay increase in 3 years and that pension and health benefits were untouched.
I'm really happy just because I think with this day and age and how the economy is, I feel very fortunate to have a job and to not have lost really anything.
But the union did back off on strict nurse-to-patient ratios, the main reason given for their one-day strike.
Mixed. kind of mixed. We didn't get the staffing stuff we wanted.
We may have not got our ratios that we wanted, but we still have that empowerment to say, no, this isn't safe. We have a voice at the table.
The hospitals have also agreed to sit down and talk about staffing in committees that are already in place.
The contract vote is not an endpoint because the entire healthcare industry is going through a tremendous amount of change, and our hospitals are in the middle of that.
Nurses, too, seem ready to move forward.
I think they accomplished some things, and I think they'll keep working on the staffing issues.
Now, this contract will be a go if they get 50% plus one. The union does expect to have results about midnight tonight. Reporting live from St. Paul, Colleen Mahoney, 5 Eyewitness News.
Let's take a closer look now what that contract includes. The nurses won't get a pay raise this year. They will get a 1% increase next year and a 2% increase the following year. Nurses who work a minimum of 16 hours a week will be eligible for benefits. This contract would also leave pension and benefits unchanged. And while the contract does not specifically address nurse-to-patient ratios, it says that the two sides will try to work together to address staffing levels. We'll bring you the results of the vote as soon as we get them.
A 9-year-old girl is one of 2 people killed in a crash with a semi in western Minnesota.
Since early this morning, thousands of nurses across the Twin Cities have been casting their ballots. They are voting on a new contract. Today was supposed to be the day nurses were planning to strike, but a sudden deal reached last week with the hospitals changed all of that. Esme Murphy has been following today's vote. She is live in St. Paul for us. And Esme, with about, 5 hours left of voting, how's it going?
Well, 5 hours left of voting. That's absolutely right, Dennis. I can tell you that so far things have gone smoothly, both at this location and also at the location in Brooklyn Park, the 2 places where the nurses are voting. However, the turnout apparently is lighter than it has been in the previous 2 votes. The previous 2 votes were to authorize that 1-day strike that took place in June, and also the authorization for that open-ended strike that was, of course, supposed to start today. Now, most of the nurses that I've spoken to today say they voted for the settlement. After months of talks and informational pickets, tense votes, and even a 1-day strike, nurses are voting today on the settlement agreement that was arrived at abruptly less than a week ago. While the union leadership is recommending a yes vote, not all nurses are on board.
I voted no, and I voted no because I feel as though they weren't listening to us.
Barb Lavelle says union leaders changed positions on staffing issues without explanation.
I was really behind M&A, but I don't feel any longer that they were behind us.
Many nurses struggled with the settlement.
I was kind of on the fence when I got here.
But Lynn Janish voted yes after talking to her union representative.
He, made it clear that we still are going to focus on that. I was heartbroken on that, but I think I feel better after today.
Other nurses say, considering the economy, they're pleased the union was able to get as much as it did.
As far as the contract being left intact, that's very, very important to me.
I am actually fairly pleased. I think there can still be more strides in state staffing, and it may have to happen at the legislative level.
And after months of bitter back and forth, the Twin Cities hospitals are also sounding a conciliatory tone, insisting the settlement does call for both sides to work together on staffing using existing in-hospital committees.
We made a renewed commitment to looking at staffing issues from both sides. So the benefit of having those existing hospital committees, putting it on that agenda means that there's a vehicle to move forward with those discussions.
Now, after the voting ends at 10 o'clock, there will be a hand count of all the votes. The results are expected to be announced sometime between midnight and 1 a.m. There are actually 7 separate votes. The 6 hospital groups will be voting individually on the contracts, and then there will also be a separate vote on the pension. It is possible that one hospital group could vote in favor of the contract. Another hospital group could vote to reject it. If anybody votes to reject the contract, well, then the talks will have to begin at square one.
Well, we'll be waiting for that count. Esme, thank you. And be sure to tune in to WCCO 4 News tomorrow morning for the results of the nurses' contract vote. That news starts at 4:30 a.m., so bright and early. A Minnesota candidate for governor is raising some eyebrows in the restaurant industry.